Cool. So we finally meet at the checkpoint. My podcast hero, uh, my secret supplier. Give you a little story of the caffeine bullets, as well as how it really did help in one of the personal adventures last year. But the man himself, David Hellard.
I,
Yeah.
I've been listening to a few of these. I like the Damien Hall one where he ran in out of breath. Am I running in out of breath? Is that what I have to do? Is that the thing?
Yeah, you got to pretend you've been at a checkpoint. Oh,
Ooh, I,
dude.
I don't
Oh,
normally
just,
stop at checkpoints though. I normally go straight through. So it's not going to be a
yeah.
great example of how I race. But there we go.
Well, that was a really good interview. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, it
But
was a
yeah, we
short
can.
one.
We'll dive in about checkpoints afterwards, about how they are the stinging nettles of the race, and you just want to fly past them. For people, because the YouTube now is dedicated, this channel, to new to ultra running, over 30s, getting involved in it. Can you give them a little bit of information about you, David, and then we'll go into what Bad Boy's all about and Nutra Bullet. I've just had a smoothie. Caffeine Bullet and everything that's going on at the moment. So yeah, David, quick chat. Quick intro.
Well, I guess if people haven't heard of me before, my journey's been, I've been a runner for about, let's say, 14 years, or maybe 14 years. Started off as something called the Hash House Harriers. So they're the drinking club with the running club problem. Then got into marathon running, and then kind of a Heathside running club, so a proper running club. After about 4 years of that, got a bit more focused, a bit more serious. Formed a team called Innovate OCR with a few friends, including people like John Album, who's gone on to far greater things than we could dream of.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, he was great when we met him, but
yeah, I'll. Well, we can chat about him afterwards. I'll park that for a minute. This is the problem with me. I get too excited. I go, right, let's talk about that. Yeah, carry on.
So we did obstacle course racing for 2 years, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, and that was probably one of my favourite times, actually, because it was quite rare to have a really strong community in running, really, because it's quite a solo endeavour. But we had this team that was fantastic. Then the sport got more serious. It's very apparent that I'm really not built for anything other than running, and some would debate whether I'm built for that. So then Jody and I formed Bad Boy Running. I'd been doing various international races, and Jody, the co-presenter, was a writer for Men's Running magazine. I was volunteering doing PR for the Sierra Leone Marathon, and got him to come along, and we just became really good buddies during that trip. You have to listen to the first or second episode to understand why, but it was being thrown into the hands of people that really didn't understand how to manage people on a foreign trip, let alone when you're doing a marathon. It was incredible, though. They're a great organisation. And about a year after that, we just figured that there wasn't really a voice for what we enjoyed about running. At the time, podcasts weren't that prevalent, let alone running ones. And men's running was pretty fun, but actually that was struggling, and decided to go more down the straight route of the runner's world, which is, great magazine, not slagging that off, but it's quite serious, quite dry. And we just thought, why isn't there a voice for people like us who we love running, we take it seriously sometimes, but actually all the stories that we talk with our friends are running and crazy fun, and the type of stories that non-runners enjoy as well. Just people that they're about people and the world and experiences, and not necessarily about training hard. So we started the podcast, and the angle of that was, I guess I was a better runner than Jody, but Jody was more focused on ultras, and I was more a standard club runner who'd had a bit of experience in obstacle racing. And then I'd always wanted to do the Marathon des Sables, or Marathon des Sables, depending how you pronounce it. So I then went into ultras because of that, and discovered the world of ultras, loved it. Because of that, the podcast, and I think as well, just because ultra running is far more interesting, has far more stories, the people involved in it are bigger characters. The podcast has probably become slightly more focused on ultras as well in who we interview. And so now I probably am more of an ultra runner than a standard runner. Or having said that, I've been pretty much injured for a year and a half, so I'm not really a runner at all. So it's quite I feel a bit like but strangely enough, the podcast has grown substantially during that time. Yeah, so now we almost represent ultra running, even though neither of us currently can do it. So it's just quite bizarre.
And then, so how long's Bad Boy Podcast been actually going?
It might be coming up to 5 years now, four or 5 years.
That's awesome. So you were one of the forefront, that's right, of the podcast world with people in it, because I think there's yourself, you've got Ian Corliss, and the Tribe Trail or whatever, but I think you're the most listened to out of, you're the go-to for the podcast, because as you say, you get because you're runners yourselves, whenever you're asking the questions to the Courtney Dollwaters of the world, it's coming from a runner's perspective, which is great for newbies and for people that enjoy ultra running. So I think it's fantastic. And then, so with all that on your hands, when did the Caffeine Bullet slot in? When did that all happen?
That was, so I've always been, I wouldn't say an entrepreneur, because I've always been an ideas guy. And the reason I wouldn't say entrepreneur is because most of the ideas I have certainly aren't money makers in any way. They tend to be more. Say again?
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah, exactly. So things like the beer belly running or camel toe. Or I used to do t-shirts, t-shirt lifter, and but I'd left I used to work at management consultancy, and I left that to do a startup called Zipcube. That went pretty well, but it was clear that the CEO and I weren't great together as a couple, should we say. And so I decided to step away from it. And throughout that time, I've always loved caffeine, and my focus as a runner, I'm quite laid back in many things, but when I train, I'm very precise in what I do. Things like nutrition, kit, everything like that. I always research it, because just analytical at heart, and I think if you're going to do something, might as well make the most of it. And if I can find a way of getting faster without having to train harder, then I'm going to take it. So I'd always relied on caffeine, but I'd actually struggled because partly caffeine gels aren't great, and gels aren't great, but let alone by the time you want a caffeine gel, you've already had 4 gels, 5 gels, 8 gels. So they're just... And
you've potentially stopped at a few checkpoints as well. So, sorry, carry on. Yeah, go on.
Yes, I always used to use Pro Plus, and but even those are just not ideal, because I'd cut out little tabs and have to trim the corners so they wouldn't jag in. And I was racing the Marathon des Sables and dropped my caffeine. I pinged out of the little packet and went in the sand, and I just couldn't find it. And I had my caffeine for that day in my side pockets, and everything else was buried at the bottom of my bag. And just thought, in the moment, and maybe I should have been a bit more sensible, I just thought, I'm going to lose too much time to go into my bag to get this thing. And it was at that point I just thought, why isn't there not just a more convenient way, but just a pleasant way to have caffeine that for one, you don't have to take a whole gel to use it, because you might have just taken a gel. If you then decide you need your caffeine, you're going to have to wait 20 minutes or half an hour until that's gone down before you can then take on more carbs. So I thought, why can't we have a nice way of separating it that's just easy to take and pleasant? And because I left Zipcube, thought, well, let's just give this a go and see if I can make a career out of something rather than just doing things for fun. So that was 3 years ago now, or so.
Where'd you get it all from? You know, where's it all made and stuff like that?
It's made in Yorkshire, and that's been the hardest. It's really interesting, actually, and it might not be interesting for the people watching this who want to talk about ultras, but it's amazing how, I think as a customer, as a consumer, you almost assume that all products can be just put together, and that you can just quite easily go, well, why don't they take the corner off that? Well, why don't they put this in that? Well, why don't they just make it longer? And actually, if you're, and that might be possible if you're these massive companies, but the reality of a small company, unless you've got massive funding, you have to adapt all of your dreams to whatever machinery currently exists and whatever processes the companies that you're going to work with already use. So we decided, rather than going to a sports nutrition firm, we'd actually go to a sweet company. And
brilliant.
Because we thought, actually, like, caffeine's caffeine, right? There's nothing new that you can really do with caffeine. There are a few subtle things that are very expensive to do with time release. But actually, for us, we just wanted the caffeine pure, fast. And so we decided we go to Sweet Company because they're going to be far better at making it tasty. And thank goodness we did. But it has restricted so many things. So, for example, the wrapper, it's not my perfect wrapper still, because I'd ideally want something that was foil, so that
quick.
It's quicker, it's cleaner, all these things. If it gets wet, it doesn't get slightly damp. But there's nothing we can really do in that respect, unless we find a completely new company to make the chew, which we can't, because I've looked across the whole of Europe, and
I think from someone who uses, like, for everybody that never heard of Caffeine Bullet, as you say, they are on sweet form in a wrapper. However, right, if they have melted or whatever, it's a good distraction from the race that you're doing to get it out. You with me? So I'm not bothered with stuff like that. I think it's, if anything takes your time away from whenever.
Do you want me to actually put it in a little problem-solving puzzle where you have to?
Yeah. And I think, whenever you mention the Marathon des Sables, this is like a little tip for new runners, because I used to do it as well, is get anything you want to eat or use, have it accessible. Train. A lot of people say train with your bag, but train with your food placement as well, because I dressed up as Forrest Gump this time last year and ran from Warrington to Bangor, and I had
classic route.
It's just road, and I wore the traditional Nike Gore-Tex, so there's zero air going into my feet, and it was a good idea at the time, but then it was just anyway. But yeah, I was taking caffeine bullets at regular intervals, and it's not a spike. Say it's the same with fell running or whatever. Whenever you just want a jelly baby, just for to get over a peak, you've got. For me, it works because, as you say, it's a sweet, so it's dissolving slowly in you. And as you mentioned, if you've taken up gels or whatever. So yeah, that's brilliant. I love the story about Caffeine Bullet, and if people want to buy it, because you're on Amazon now as well, aren't you?
We're on Amazon in UK, Canada now, Australia, the US, and mainland Europe. So that's actually one of our biggest channels now.
Brilliant.
Just because everyone gets. I mean, I hate it as a company, but it's very good for finding people. So yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it provides you with data.
Yeah.
So yeah, new runners, they're all listening. So we've told them a little bit about a cracking caffeine suite.
But I think what you said earlier, though, about practicing that's something that people don't think about for racing, is actually, you forget that, well, you don't know if you're a new runner. If you've come from road racing, it's so different when you've actually got kit to rely on. And you almost need to be able to subconsciously know where anything you need is, so that you don't, when you have a panic on, you just instinctively grab your gel, you grab your shot blocks, whatever it is. And actually that's so important in how you have your kit, because packing your kit so that it's in the order of what you could need it, especially in stuff like multi-day, if you're having to carry a tent or you're doing something like the where you've actually got sleeping bags and change of clothes. Just thinking about, because I'm a massive fan of having as much of my energy in my shorts, and then almost not needing anything from my bag at all for the whole day. I'm just in my pockets the whole time, because unpacking a bag is just an unnecessary, slows you down, but also it's just a faff, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, I'm for anybody who shared the tent with me or around with me, I'm so messy. And I've always thought, you get these people that always do the traditional setting out of kit before race day kit ready. And I'm going, for God's sakes, where have I put everything? Because I turned up for the MDS with an ambit, and then my spare watch didn't work, and it was ridiculous. But as you say, especially with the Caffeine Bullet, being able to put it in places where you can get, because funnily enough, I was speaking with Seb Batchelor, cracking runner, and we were talking, because I'll be asking you as well. I'm a kit geek. What do you wear for certain races, from your feet to your head? And he was talking about the Bindi Petzl watch, and he goes, light, and he goes, it's only 30 grams. And for people coming new to ultra running, the less weight the better. So then we started, because I'm because I'm a bit of a podcaster, try and fashionize what I'm wearing. So I now wear one as a kind of mark of respect to Flavor Flav out of Public Enemy.
Wait, at all times? In the shower? In making love?
Well, no, just when I'm going out or just want to impress people. And so that's it. It's all about weight. And, we put a winter edition race on where, you have to put your head torch on at a certain time. And you just get these people taking their bags off and going right to the bottom. So it is, it's a take-home tip for myself and me, is when you're packing, pack relevant to the what you're going to need. And I think as well, aid stations, if you are, I wouldn't say a fussy eater, but phone them up, especially for vegans, if it's not vegan friendly, drop bag placement and so on. But it's always good to know what they've got there in case you are running light and you get to the aid station, it's like, shit, there's nothing here, I like you. So yeah. So back to, I'll just jump on to, there's different, for new runners, there's different people you'll hear us talking about. And you mentioned at the start John Alban. And I think he's such an incredible runner, and he's shown that mixing it up, because he loves his obstacle courses, bow and arrow, and all that kind of thing. It's really important to mix up your running with just doing other stuff that you enjoy, because I think a lot of people, as soon as I'm a runner, that's all they do. But, speaking with Seb and others, getting on the bike and other stuff. So, yeah, it was good because, like, John Alban was in the Worlds in Portugal where I saw him at first last year. And you're just looking at somebody that's different. And it's always good for people, you know, especially new to the sport, thinking, oh, I can't go for a walk with my mates now because I'm doing this, or I won't be playing badminton. It's like,
or even things like, I don't want to put on
I-
muscle, or I don't want to, you know, John's got to be one of the strongest guys on earth, pound for pound.
Yeah, no, he's incredible to watch. And then, so Bad Boy Running Podcast. I missed the new runner here. What's it about? Especially the podcast itself is fantastic. You guys have done about 300 whatever episodes, and as you say, you can scroll down and look for certain people's names. The Facebook group. What's it all about?
Well, a lot of it is. It's actually changed quite a bit, but primarily we look at running without. One of the phrases I quite like is "dick about, but don't be a dick." So I think a lot of running, if we talk about the group, a lot of groups, you have people who are very aggressive in their views, or who just want to tell you their way is right and your way is wrong, and we just don't like that. It's strange, because I think people think taking the piss means that you're combative, but actually it's not. It's almost everything about the group and about the podcast is being able to laugh at yourself, or laugh at others, because you're not being mean in laughing at others. You're doing it with them. So the podcast is a mix of it's a mix of ultra stories, but then also it's pretty much anything to do with running that's amazing that you probably didn't know about. So it could be, for example, about a marathon club that happens in San Quentin State Penitentiary for lifers, or it could be about Rhonda Marie Avery, who has run a 350-mile race unsupported, unaided, non-stop, with only 8% vision. But then it might be something as stupid as a guy who has never run before, who the night before did a drunken bet with his friends and ended up running the marathon the next day, having done zero training. And we just speak to him about how it was for him, because he was a funny guy and what he went through. So it's partly that. When we do get some very good guests on, so we've pretty much had everyone who's everyone in ultras, whether it's, you know, Camille's been on. In fact, bizarrely, Camille Herrons, the 100, 50, 12, 24 hour, soon to be 48 hour world record holder. She was a listener before we even knew before we even got her on. Yeah, she just joined the group and we're like, she's pretty quick. And then she won Comrades. And then I was like, I need some advice from this lady. But I guess
if we just stop for 2 minutes and go into depth a little bit about her. Phenomenal. You know, what was it like when you were interviewing in terms of you know, what little bits and nuggets or advice did you think, oh, that's a handy little way, or, you know, what's her way?
She's so different.
Yeah.
She's super cool as well, and is actually very honest about her training. But I think as a new listener, she is the most inspirational person to follow training wise. Not in every way. Some things I'll tell you, you're like, I will never do that. So for example, before she went into ultra running pro, she was averaging 100 miles a week for the last 10 years, just because she loves running that much. So you're not going to do that. I'm not going to do, none of us are going to do that, which is fine. But the amazing thing about her is, I guess the three big tips that I think all runners should take. One is, before she won Comrades, she ran 13 of her 14 days a week on flat. And once a week, she'd find, it was a pretty substantial hill from what I gather, but she'd then do intervals where it would be the equivalent of, let's say, a mile of running hard up, mile of running hard down. And that would be her tempo run. So the run where you're at your thresholds. For an ultra, you'd probably want that to be about your 10-mile pace. But not if you were racing, because you're going to be knackered. So it'd be slightly slower. But that is all she did as hill training to win Comrades. And she's now moved to Boulder, so she's changed that completely. But that's how she's approached all of these amazing races, and that's been good enough. She does strength training, which helps with the hills, but also her other advice: if you're a gym bunny that doesn't want to stop going to the gym because you're doing ultras, for one, being strong's great, but also her other little tip was, when she has a legs day in the gym where she's going for strength, but she'll then on the other days do upper body strength, because I can't remember her exact degree, but she's done a PhD in this area, and she found that if you were doing weights on your upper body, it then flooded your body with the growth hormones and all of these positive things that help you increase strength, increase stamina, all these drugs that your body creates to help you get better. And so you're essentially using those, because your body is one big system. You're flooding your bloodstream with these drugs, these hormones that your legs can use. And so you're actually, I'm not going to, well, I'll use the word doping. It's obviously not doping because it's completely legal. It's just genius, but it's a way of being able to give your leg muscles all these incredibly useful hormones and various other goodies without having to do a leg workout. And so while you're doing your easy days on your legs, they're still sucking up all this good stuff. So those three rules, and the other rule is that there's these 100 miles that she does, and when she trained for Comrades, which is a 56-mile race depending on the year, she never ran more than 20 miles in a day. Nearly all of her days a half split, 10 miles in the morning, 10 miles at night. And now we're not going to do 100-mile weeks, probably most of us, but still, when you're building up, if you're coming back from injury and you want to get back quicker, or even if you haven't got the time, or actually if you just can't face your long runs, because no one really wants to go out for 3 hours, 4 hours, potentially longer, don't. Just split it in half. And actually, the interesting thing is, I was speaking to the nutritionist from Cliff Bar, and you actually improve faster by splitting your runs, because your body recovers and also improves after each run. So not only is it easier mentally knowing, well, I'm just going out for this short run, but also if you think about, if your run's this long, you feel great for the first half, right? And then the second half you start to feel crappy. So not only does it reduce because you do your shorter run and actually you feel better for more of it. And then you do your other shorter run and you feel better for more of that because you've had all this recovery. You've got your nutrition, you're less likely to get injured, you're going to perform better because you've got, your muscles have recovered as well. And so not only are you improving twice, but it's easier during it. And also you don't have that dread of it because it's not so bad. So all these things playing together, it's the easy way to train.
I think for people that are watching this, stop, rewind to about 5 minutes before, get your notepad and get your pen and write this information down. I'm a massive believer in, it's a lot of people, you watch a YouTube or whatever, and wow, that was cool and interesting. And then off you trot. It's like the amount of nuggets that you've just given there, especially with, how the body works and floods itself and so on. From, that's, people would buy that information, but because on your podcast and so on, she's talked about it, that's information for free. But I'm a massive believer is, especially if you're out running and you listen to your podcast and you think, right, when I get home, I'll write that down and use it, because these things work. Because one of the questions I was going to ask as well, whenever we all start running, especially, with first ultras and so on, you just have no idea what you're doing. You know, although you've been training, you know, in one stage, it's just you want to complete it rather than compete. You know, the motto of the show here is, you know, compete rather than complete. At what stage of your, you know, I think Marathon des Sables, as you say, was a huge learner. I think that's whenever all your parameters drop. You know, I'd only done a couple of ultras before then, because mentally you just don't understand how big it is. And then, you know, you've got people with arms, legs, whatever missing, and then you just think, well, hang on, your head is, you know, such and such. And then you start, you know, Elizabeth Barnes had a, you know, brilliant training program and so on. You know, in terms of your own development and so on, what was one of the ultras that you've trained for which proved such a good investment? You really enjoyed the race in a kind of a natural way for the first time, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's interesting. It's exactly as you say, the fact that you do go on this learning progress, but also your body. It's your body learning as well. It's not just your mind, and you will make mistakes, but sometimes they're not even mistakes. It's just that your first few ultras, they're going to go wrong, some of them, because you're asking your body to do something it's just not necessarily trained for, but even if it is, it's just not expecting. I'd probably Comrades, actually. So I've not done crazy amounts of ultras. I did one of the...
What year?
That was almost 2 years ago to the day, in fact.
Can you explain what that race is, where it is, and how much it is, just for the newbies?
Comrades is, I just can't be as... It's just amazing. There's very few races, I think, that live up to the expectation. But so Comrades is the world's... I'm just going to shut that door because I've just realised...
All right.
I think my future mother-in-law is grinding some beans to have a lovely coffee. So
yeah, I heard that. Nice. Nice.
But in fact, she is my future mother-in-law because of Comrades, because we got engaged at the finish line. But that's another story. So Comrades is the world's oldest ultra, and it's also by absolute far, the world's biggest ultra. So it's 25,000 people, I think, approximately. It might be even more by now because it's going up and up. It's been going for close to 100 years, maybe 100 years now. South Africa, which itself adds an extra bit of spice to it. And very unusually, it's all on road as well. So they've changed the distances recently. 1 year, it's an up race. So it starts in Durban and goes to Pietermaritzburg, which is just a random place where the bet that happened 100 years ago was from. So 1 year, you go up 4,000 meters, you go down 2,000 meters. The other year, you do the reverse, except to make up for the down, it's slightly longer. So I think it's the difference between like 2 miles extra, maybe 3 miles extra. But what's great, it's got so many stories because it's so old, and I loved the journey of training for that. One, because it was the first time I trained for an ultra where I felt I knew what I was doing. I'd done the MDS, I'd learned from my body, learned about kit, learned about training, and it was the first time I went, great, let's train for this. Doing it with my fiance as well, which is quality. The fact we could both do it together, and just sat down and went, I'm going to make a training plan for this race, and did it. And it was all using all this information. It all worked. But also because most people going into it, like myself, are fairly clueless as well. You listen to all the stories, and it's one of those races where there's so much history to it that every hill has a name. And so if you imagine something like the London Marathon, you probably know Cutty Sark, and you run around Cutty Sark. You're like, oh yeah, this is the boat Cutty Sark. Great. Whereas in Comrades, there's the hill where all of the names of the people that have achieved certain things are on the wall, and these plaques at the end of this hill. There's the hill where someone died. There's you pass through the school for the disabled who are blind, and they're all cheering, there's just all these moments that they're so magical, and they're almost like folklore. But also, to get into it, it's pretty aggressive. You need to finish the whole thing in 12 hours.
How many miles?
It's about 52 to 54, depending on the up or the down year. Yeah. So if you think about it, it's road which is faster, but actually if you're not used to it, it's more destructive on your body, and it's got a lot of incline, and it can be pretty hot because it's South Africa. Yeah. So all these elements, and actually it's quite an aggressive cutoff. So that adds a bit of spice. But because it's also such it is the sport of South Africa. You know, if you're a runner in South Africa, they don't care about marathons. Comrades is the only distance that matters. So
really,
you could be there 15. In fact, we're speaking to Thabang, who's the trail champion over there, or he was. And yeah, no one cares about that. They're like, well, what's your Comrades time? And unusually, that like if you do something like the London Marathon, you're going to have this huge support. But I've never done an ultra where people are having barbecues all the way along the side of the road. And actually, at one point, my stomach went. And Camille loves to have a beer when her stomach goes in ultras. And so I thought, well, I might as well try it. So I just stopped and had someone's Corona. And sure enough, all that fizz and stuff just settled my stomach. I was away again. But
it sounds a bit like kind of Tour de France.
Yeah.
For runners, kind of like, wow, we
gotta do it, Hugh. And when and also they give medals based on when you finish. So to get in a pen, the start gun goes, and that's the beginning of everyone's time. It's not chip timed from when you cross the line. It's so you want to be in as far forward in the pens as possible.
Yeah. Just a quick stop. What the pens mean for newbies? Sorry for.
Yeah, of course. And actually, in most ultras, you don't have pens. So most ultras are small enough, or it's just not necessarily competitive enough that there's the start line and you stand where you want. And typically, the faster runners will go to the front, the slower runners will go to the back. But in bigger races, they need to actually get organised so they can get everyone in the right position, because there's nothing worse for anyone really than someone being too far forward because if you're not quick enough to be there, you're going to start too quick and then just have this depressing feeling of people overtaking you. But also if you're behind that, you've got to get around them, which it just causes these in something like London Marathon. It's really destructive if you've got a pace group that can't move ahead of two people running who are in the wrong bit because some elements aren't wide enough. But so they have these pens where for most marathons that have them, you put down what you predict your time to be. In Comrades, you have to prove it. So you have to run a marathon in the 5 months before to qualify for your pen. So not only are you surrounded by all these people that have a similar speed to you, but the great thing is everyone's number gives information about them as a runner. So you've got your color, which tells you how many they've done.
Yeah.
But I've got to remember, I might get that. No, there's color, which tells you if someone's international. You've got your start pen on there, so you can see where someone, what time they got to qualify, and you've got the number of runs they've done as well. So you can see. So when people run their 10th, they get a green number, which is Mike, who I was running with. He's been wanting this for years, and it's a massive kudos because it's a hard ultra. So 10 of those, and so whenever you're running, you see all these different numbers, and you're like, who am I surrounded by? Like, whoa, I'm with the wrong 10 people here. I need to speed up, or well, I'm getting carried away. So you get that, but when you finish, you don't just get a medal for finishing. You get a medal based on your time. And so there are 10 gold medals. If you finish sub 7:30, you get a silver medal. It's sub 10, is it sub 9? There's sub 9, there's another one. And so it means that everyone is pacing for these times, and you get pacing groups that are the biggest I've ever seen, because if someone wants to run a sub 4 at a marathon, to them that's quite a personal battle, but it's there's not as much on the line as Comrades, because that person's got a sub 4 goal, but the next person's got a sub 4:15 goal, or the next person's got a sub 3:30 goal. Whereas in Comrades, you've got a top 10, a sub 9, a sub 7:30. So everyone is going for those exact times. So you'll have pace groups that, Gary, there's a British guy who did the sub 11 or the sub 12, and he had 150, 200 people in his pace group. And that, if you think about when you normally do an ultra and you come into an aid station, a lot of people like to faff, but also you have a bit of this, you have a bit of that. If you're in a pace group of 200 people, you've just got to share stuff out, but it might not reach you in the middle. But also the difference in temperature of the middle of that group, because there's no wind coming in and all the heat is retained. So actually it causes real issues depending where you are in that group, because you're stuck in the pace, and so you have these massive groups coming in that then are desperately trying to get in under their cutoff. And so once you've finished, you're in a stadium, and these 25,000 people have all their friends and family who come and watch, who then, when it comes to the 7:30, when it comes to the 9, everyone gets their drinks and you come and you cheer, and people are going absolutely flat out to try and make it in their target time. And so you see bodies lying on the floor trying to crawl, and people sprinting, and the marshals are so tight, and if you don't cross the line at 12 hours, you do not finish. And so they fire a gun. The person who fires the gun is not allowed to look at the finish line in case they're swayed by someone that they decide, I'll just let them in. And so you'll see, if you go onto YouTube and watch it, you'll see people who can't walk, who are trying to crawl, and they'll have friends who then try and drag them over the line, who then realize they can't make it, and people are absolutely sprinting, and it's one of the most incredible things to see in sports. The most heartbreaking. There was this one guy who ran in who was just thanking the whole audience, going, thank you. And I was trying to scream. I mean, he would never heard me, but I was screaming at him like, run, and he didn't finish. And you have these people who you've trained for a year and a half, and you can see the finish line and you get nothing. And that's the thing. You do this race, you're part of this incredible experience, and then you share in the whole experience of watching everyone come in. It's so good.
And then it's this time of the year normally, you say? And then so if I want to do it, I've just got to wait for a bit of my body to get well. It'll probably be in a couple of years' time. I'm sold. But for a newbie, whatever, how much does it cost? Is it ballot? What a flight's like and so on. Because I'm a huge believer, as being representative for ITRA, Great Britain, I'm a huge believer in being a running tourist. It just, the families involved and so on. So Durban, as you say, flights in and out, no problem. So in terms of a ballpark figure for a cost to get there and back.
So I think it's about £200 to enter, which is not bad actually, for an ultra, and actually for everything you get there. Then flights about £450, and it's packed when you get there. But actually, the good thing is it's South Africa, so we tend to do holidays where we can do a race during it,
Yes.
because you might as well. But also, your experience of the whole holiday is great, because I mean, being in South Africa when Comrades is on is amazing anyway. But everyone goes, "Oh, how come you're in South Africa?" And you go, "Well, I've heard about this thing called Comrades." And so your experience and your interaction with every single person you ever meet is amazing, because
they're all on that kind of
they love it.
level. And then, so what was your time? What did you do it in?
I did 6:58.
Jesus.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with that. It was quite a strange one in that I didn't really know what time to go for, and I didn't really have any hard. I needed to get under 7:30 for the medal, which I was like, yeah, that'd be fine. So
then the qualifying marathon that you ran, what was that? London, or what marathon did you run?
That was Somaliland, because I was pacing the London Marathon for the 3:15 group. So that wouldn't have been quick enough to get. I think you needed a sub 3 or something to be in the A pen. So I couldn't use that. And then I'm like, do I really want to run a sub 3 somewhere else just for the sake of it in training? So yeah, I was going to Somaliland in January or February, and so that was somehow, I mean, basically, it definitely wasn't on their list of marathons that you could use to qualify. But I mean, who's going to argue?
Yeah, exactly. And then you said, did you propose to your wife at the end?
Yeah, we're not married. In fact, we're meant to be getting married in 12 days' time, but Corona and all. So not married yet. But yeah, she was running it as well. And
does she know you? Were you just full of endorphins and you thought, this is great, will you marry me?
Well, actually, the weird thing is, I'm happy to talk about brands, but I wouldn't normally promote Coca-Cola, but this is the best thing I've ever seen a company do in a race. So Coca-Cola set up a Coca-Cola section at 60 kilometers, which is the start of the big down. So in my head, I was just thinking, get to the 60k, just take it easy till then, because you got the loads of hills. You don't really know what you're doing that well. When it comes to 60k downhill, you love downhills. Then we just go hell for leather. So they set up this massive screen where in the expo you could record a video clip that when someone's chip ran through the chip timer at that point, it played that video to them on the massive screen. And so Briggsy and I had recorded videos for each other. And weirdly enough, when she was coming up to it, and I think she crossed that bit just as the winner was coming into the finish line. So they didn't show my clip, annoyingly, but it did cross her mind. I wonder, because she just heard the person inside the cubicle with me pissing themselves. She's like, or being like, wow, you're going to be. And so she's like, I wonder if he's proposed. But I basically stripped off all my clothes for her and being like, look at what's at the finish, Briggsy, come and get your prize. But that was amazing, because when I ran through and she came up, it was just so emotional. I was just so, and I think from the reaction of the crowd, I don't think they'd had any other runners who'd had a video clip play before, and they didn't know that was going to happen. So they suddenly saw this clip, and then they saw me just like waving at her, and so cool. But we've dated for 4 years now, and when she crossed the line, she was far faster than I did, because she did it in 750, which is pretty damn good for someone who wouldn't consider themselves like a hardcore ultra runner or anything.
That's fantastic. And then, so because of the heat and support, what it's the Hughes kit section. Kit wise, what was on your feet? Because as you say, it was road. And what were you wearing? Shorts, bag, what was in it and stuff?
So I always go very minimalist in everything I do. Kit wise, I just had nutrition wise, I just had shot blocks because I love them. And then I I made sure like the flavors. My favorite flavor was for later on my left. My least favorite were here. Then I had obviously bullets. Kit wise,
We'll just go quickly about shot blocks.
mm,
They're, for people that don't know, they're like a Jello kind of where you can just peel it off. It is like jelly sort of thing.
yeah.
There was like, I think when I was in the MDS, I was using like a cocktail flavour and stuff. As you say, you've
Margarita.
got what? The margarita one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good. Especially in somewhere like Comrades where it's hot and sweaty. You need your salts. Oh man. Yeah, so I had a mix of them and ginger ale. But if you try gels and you don't like those, then the great thing about shot blocks is they're not gels for one, but also you get a packet that's got 6 blocks in, and that's equivalent to 2 gels. And so instead of having to take an entire gel, you can just have one shot block. I'd do one every mile, and that would get me in. That would be my nutrition covered. But so then it's just nice to just have a shot block every now and then.
What make were you wearing on your feet? I'm a shoe geek. So what did you have on trainers?
Well, I was hoping to have so I'm just gonna grab a coffee. I was hoping to have the Nike Vaporfly, but it's the first pair of trainers that I tried running downhill, and it's the first pair of trainers I've ever worn that gave me issues. I don't quite understand it, but I couldn't use them, unfortunately, which is such a shame because my God, for downhill running, if you hear people talk about them being good trainers, and I'm not the biggest fan of Nike as a company. I've got to say I don't like. I just don't like what's happened in America with Mo Farah, should we say? But my God, if you think those trainers are good, for downhills, they are next level because they just project you. And oh man, I wish I'd had those. I'd love to know how quickly I could have done it in those. Yeah. My God. But I think I was just wearing Adidas Adizeros or Adidas Ultra Boost or something like that.
Ultra Boost, fantastic.
Yeah, they're lovely, aren't they?
Tom Evans has gone with Adidas now, isn't he?
Has he?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
He's been with them for a couple of years.
Because he was hooker for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. So when he hopped over to there, I was like thinking, but it's a traditional brand, Adidas. Because I was asking at the checkpoint, are you a shoe tourist, or are you, I only buy Hoka, or I only buy Axis, or I only buy Sale and stuff. So yeah, I'm a mega geek when it comes to that. So yeah, I'll put that in the notes as well. And then your shorts, what brand are they?
I would see. Well, I mean, I probably should be quite honest with how I do my kit. I tend to use what I'm given for free.
But why not? There's a lot of people that say, you shouldn't be mentioning brands in shows. I say promote the shit
absolutely,
out of because these guys that give the people that you're speaking with, or say if you've got a favourite shoe and you're not even sponsored by them, mention them because that's how people make their business. So yeah, what did you get for free?
Well, now I can mostly get anything I want, but traditionally I used to be sponsored by Innovate because they sponsored our team because of John, essentially. So I was my hanger-on who was like, "You've got to give them to him as well." But the trainer-wise, I wouldn't actually. My view is my view. I'm not as knowledgeable as others, mainly because I don't have any issues with trainers. I can pretty much wear any trainer, and I did the Marathon des Sables in a pair of trainers I'd only worn for 10 miles, and I didn't get a single blister because I don't know why. I think maybe my feet are hardened through lots of running, but I'm just lucky in some respects as well. So I can pretty much choose anything I like. If I've always worn Adidas just because I like really light shoes, and the Adizeros. And
how much do they weigh?
They
about 300, 400
No,
grams?
way less than that. I think they're
really
like 190 or 220 depending on the size. And I just love. I've been it's from my marathon days more. I've been a proponent of having a pair of magic shoes where you have one pair that you save for when you want to run a PB, and they're the shoe that you want to make
like
love
that.
to, basically. And
Yeah.
so when you're wearing them, just the lightest shoe possible. Not everyone should do this because some people need support and it depends on your running style, all those things, but the lightest shoe possible. Then race day comes, you put those on, oh my word, and you're like, I feel like I can fly. And you just feel
great
great.
idea.
It's so nice. So yeah, I've always loved the Adizeros, and then because of that, the extension, the Adidas Ultras. But actually, I've not tried that many. It was because I was been giving them for free as a London Marathon pacer, and I had this thing where I like to see how many miles I can get out of my trainers, and the Ultras, I think I've got to 2,000 miles now.
That's money's worth.
yeah, I know. Yeah, so I'd listen to other people for advice on trainers because they've probably got more experience than I do with different brands. I've used Nike because I had loads for the Nike Grid. But as much as I hate to say it, if you want to run fast, the Vaporfly are so much faster than anything. They shouldn't be legal.
What would you say is the trail version of the Vaporfly? What have we got? Because I'm a big, I bought a pair because I'm not running at the moment. You know, whenever you just still want kit, so I got a pair of the On shoe, and they're just. But you know, I normally run trail in La Sportivas, the Mutants. They've just brought out the Jackal, but then you've got, you know, whenever New Balance had the Leadville and so on. But it is, you know, everybody's always hunting for that shoe. I know there's different conditions and so on with trail. You know, Solomon's got a lot of the market, Innovate, Ultra and stuff. But yeah, I think, you know, because tarmac is tarmac and, you know, the Sub 2 just set it apart. It's, you know, there isn't that standout version yet in ultra trail for a shoe, and I think that will come. I think we're, you know, that there's obviously so much going on behind the scenes with lots of different business, but that's another.
But then it might not, because I think the challenge for them will be, because we interviewed the designer of the Vaporfly, and I think the challenge will be, if even the Vaporflies now, they fall apart so quickly. I don't know if that's the intention or just because they're trying to cut down on everything so that it's as light. I mean, essentially it's a shoe that has been specifically designed for Kipchoge, and so he only needs to wear it once, so that's what they've done. But I don't know whether the foam and the design is durable enough that you can actually make it into an ultra shoe, because
it's 26. Because I think it was Ted Jackson. He used them for an ultra, and he said, you know, they're no good after 26 miles.
I think Ted Jackson's no good after 26 miles, to be fair, but I think that might be more reflection on Ted and his training.
For the people who haven't heard of Ted, don't Google him. No. Google that guy. The man is a legend. Very good friends with him. You know, he did, you know, the seven continents in 7 days.
He did the Marathon des Sables dressed as a camel.
Yeah, and as a devil with a sandstorm. Yeah, he's another guest. I've had him on podcast. But good pals with Ted. Fair play. He was waiting for a pizza to be delivered, so he said, "Here, I've got some free time. I can come on the podcast." Blessed. But yeah, going back to the Vaporfly. So yeah, shoes and so on. You cover all different kinds of things. I'll just wrap this up a little bit now. So time to pitch it, bitch. Podcast, the Bad Boy Podcast, the Facebook group. Is it free to join the Facebook group? Can people?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, everything we do, so we don't really even have adverts on the podcast, because no one wants to sponsor us. But everything we do is, we're never going to create content that's worse just for the sake of us. So we're not going to do listener shout outs of times, or we're not going to have like 3-minute, hey, I really like this coffee, I think you should buy this coffee. We everything we do, we want to do it right, and we want to do it as if we're the listener. And so podcast is free. We do have a running club you can join, that's an England affiliated running club. That's not free, but actually that's nothing to do with us anymore, and all the money has to be spent legally on the running club. So actually, so you get affiliation, but you get also kit that we can't talk about because there's everything to do with it is a secret. And
right, yes,
yeah, and so,
how much does it cost for somebody to join?
There's different levels. So I think a yearly membership's 50 quid, but believe me, I'm just doing the kit. We've just designed the kit for next year, and we're trying to replicate. When I was a kid, we used to love the Beano and the Dandy, and
gossip. This is what I love. Carry on.
Yeah, and what I found the most exciting things as a child was when you got a package that you're not used to, and that in itself was quite exciting because you weren't your joy of the post wasn't destroyed by numerous bills that you can't pay, so that you fear it. And so it was when you get something like the Beano membership club, and you'd open it up, and there'd be all these little things in it that no one told you were going to happen. You'd be like, wow, this is so cool. I can't believe it. And so we've tried to create that with our club, where no one knows. Well, in fact, I think most people who listen, who are part of the Facebook group, probably know what happens because people post in there excitedly. But every year, the money that the club gets either goes to reducing price on races, or primarily is used for some really cool kit that you can only get as a member.
Love it.
At the moment, the bit we're getting in from China, basically. I'm using my supply chain experience, and so the bit of kit that you get for next year, which you have to be signed up for this year, you can't, once it's out, you can't sign up and get it. You only get the first year's stuff. So it's quite hard. Well, I'm not making a very good clear explanation of it, but yeah, the item you're going to get for next year, if you were to buy it in a shop, would be worth more than the membership.
Wow.
Because we're buying it in bulk, direct from the manufacturer, and all these things. So we're trying to get that sense of excitement and fun in a club that I think is missing in a lot of.
I'm going to join, although I'm not running at the moment. I'm going to join. We'll put all the notes and links in the YouTube for people to, to say if they've thought, right, Facebook group, there you go, podcast, there you go, joining the running club, there you go. So yeah, brilliant. I've just looked at the time. We've been yabbering for about an hour. It's been awesome speaking to you, David. If we can have another catch up on the YouTube show again, because you've got so much information that is going to help so many newbies, especially when you were talking about the Comrades, and also when you were speaking about, the different training methods. It's brilliant. And I'd certainly recommend everybody hop onto the Facebook group. It's great fun. And as you say, there's banter. Doesn't matter what level of running you are, everybody enjoys it. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, no, thank you.
It's been good to finally talk. We keep on missing each other. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, he's recorded it like Gary has, because I can't Zoom. It's ridiculous. But, David, thanks ever so much for coming on at the checkpoint, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Cheers, Stu. So do I now pretend that I'm off running to the next checkpoint?
Yeah, off you go.
Whoo. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Thanks.